Lakers tomorrow at 5 in Boston. Kyrie swerving is doing his thing over the last 9 games. Very impressive. And Jason Tatum, if you'll recall, my Rookie of the Year candidate, is putting on a show. We have the NFL in second segment. A nice little recap of Roy Halladay's career in the third segment. If you haven't heard, he passed away earlier today in a plane crash. Really sad one. But segment 1... Oh, and tonight I am joined by Mustang News sports editor Eric Engel. Eric, how you doing?
Pretty good, Ben. How about yourself?
Oh, just dandy. It's been a fun day. Big day for sports. Sad day for sports. Really exciting day for the NBA. Thoughts on Kyrie swerving and the streak of games he's put together over the last 9?
Well, I think that this has been a long time coming for Kyrie. I think if you look at his early days in Cleveland, when he was the only guy really there leading that team, he's been poised to be in this position for a long time now. And I think it's great to watch what he's doing, being able to step into that leadership role with that young cast around him. I think even more so since Hayward went down, obviously, having to pick up a little bit more of the slack.
So other things we'll be talking about tonight on The Clutch in the NBA. Eric Bledsoe got traded to the Bucks. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. The Warriors have turned around their kind of weird start to the season, and the Cavs have been struggling so far, and we're going to get some expert takes on that. One of those experts calling in all the way from Canada, Alex Fletcher. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, good. You sound good. How's Canada? Is it snowy?
It's cold. Yeah, it's really cold. Got snow everywhere and below freezing temperatures.
How's the team reacting? Are they whining at practice about how cold it is? Because you could send them to slow. It's nice and sunny and 75 here.
Yeah, I just remember the show you had a couple weeks ago where you were saying how you can't wait till sweater weather.
Oh, I love sweater weather.
Punch in the face.
All right, Al. I just heard Eric. Oh, by the way, this is Eric Engel. He's the Mustang News sports editor.
Oh, nice. How's it going? Hey, Eric.
Hey, Alex. How's it going?
Good.
So, Alex Fletcher, Kyrie Irving over these last 9 games has been the Kyrie Irving that Kyrie wanted himself to be. What have you seen out of him that is different from his time at the Cavs, better or worse?
Well, did you guys watch that game last night?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, he was unreal. That was so fun to watch.
He had 35, right?
Yeah, and just clutch basket after clutch basket.
Well,
and I'm not a huge fan of Dennis Schroeder either, and Kyrie just torched him. So that was fun for me to watch also.
Jason Tatum ended up hitting the big 3, and then in post-game, when people were asking Kyrie about it, he said, I don't know why he didn't take the 2 before that. He was wide open. If Jason Tatum has the shot, he's got to take the shot. And you and I think, both called him for Rookie of the Year just because we think he's the most talented rookie in the entire NBA. And I agree with Kyrie. He's got to start taking the shot. You know, he doesn't need to be like Lonzo, where Lonzo doesn't shoot at all, and I think everyone's okay with that. I think he needs to be Jason Tatum, and Jason Tatum is an aggressive offensive player who can be a beast on defense, and I think he was the most offensive, talented player in the draft this year, and I think he's shown that so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But back to your first question about what do I see in Kyrie? Well, obviously his play speaks for itself, but I think just kind of as I watch the games, he appears to be so much more engaged with his teammates and kind of in a leadership role now, where he's talking to all those young guys, Tatum especially, and Jaylen Brown. Seems like Kyrie, every possession is saying something to those guys and just talking to them, helping them through it. And he appears, just body language reading, which I don't know if I'm an expert, but I like to think I'm an expert. He seems to be enjoying himself a lot more. It seems like he's more comfortable and kind of, I don't know. It's nice to see because I've always loved watching him play.
It's really nice for me to see because the beginning of the season, obviously the first 5 minutes of the season, people were ready to sell on the Celtics. They were saying they don't have a chance. Their most expensive star is gone. And just seeing how Kyrie's responded to that and just playing, it's got to be in his back of the mind. He's playing better than the entire Cavaliers team right now. It's really cool to see what he's doing. And as long as he's not telling those rookies about the flat world and everything, I think he's probably saying the right thing. So I hope they learn from him, and I think it's kind of weird for us to say that Kyrie's a veteran now, but he's almost reaching that tier of veteran, just good NBA-ness, if that's a string of words I can put together.
I think so.
All right, cool. So what's in store for the Celtics? What do they finish up in the East?
Well, the other interesting thing about the Celtics is right now, I know it's early still, but they are the number one defense in the league right now as far as defensive rating goes.
And that's what Eric and I were talking about before the show. We're seeing Kyrie play defense.
Yeah, and it's I would think it would last. Brad Stevens is coaching. They got guys like Marcus Smart and Aaron Baines, who Aaron Baines is quietly, I think, a huge pickup for them. Last year, Aaron Baines was on Detroit with Pistons, and if you just had to guess which lineup Detroit was better defensively with Aaron Baines on the floor or when Andre Drummond was on the floor, I would think 90% of the population would say Andre Drummond just because of his name and he's a little more famous. But Detroit was actually better with Aaron Baines on the floor last year.
You did your work for this show. I'm impressed.
Well, yeah, I was actually getting into an argument. Our team manager is from Detroit, from Michigan, and he is a huge Pistons fan. And so we kind of got into an argument today. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, the Celtics are they're fun to watch. That's for sure.
So Oh, please go.
Sorry, were you asking where do I think they're going to end up?
Yes.
I think I'm going to pick them as the number one seed in the East.
All right, I like that choice. Another team in the East, who would have thought we'd be starting off this broadcast by talking about Eastern Conference teams, but frankly, they've been a little more entertaining this year. The Milwaukee Bucks just got a lot better.
Yeah.
So the Phoenix Suns have traded disgruntled guard Eric Bledsoe, I think that's an understatement, to the Milwaukee Bucks for center Greg Monroe, a 2018 first-round protected draft pick, and a 2018 protected second-round pick. So now you have Bledsoe going in with the Greek Freak himself, Giannis, and Chris Middleton for a team that now might be the most explosive offensive team in the entire Eastern Conference. Thoughts?
Well, I actually just watched the Bucks and Cavs game. That was just on. The Cavs beat them. But what I'll say about the Eric Bledsoe trade and just kind of the Milwaukee Bucks in general, I don't know how much the Bledsoe trade helps Giannis per se. Like, he's going to be Giannis no matter who's on his team. He's that good. He's that talented. But what it does is I believe it makes all of their role players much better because it's an interesting thing. Let's say who are their best two players right now? Clearly, Giannis is their best player, and then maybe Middleton is their second best player.
Yeah, I would say Chris Middleton.
So Chris Middleton is not a very good second best player, but if he's your third best player, now we're getting somewhere. So it just kind of moves everybody down the depth chart a little bit, and their role players just, I think, become better and benefit a little more from not being the target of a scouting report.
The one thing that really just kind of stood out to me in their game tonight against the Cavs, because they did play really well for at least 3.5 quarters of that game. The Cavs sort of turned it on towards the end, and J.R. Smith by far had his best game of the season and actually looked like J.R. Smith.
Yeah, Kevin Love also.
Kevin Love, yeah. What did he end up with, 30? He was getting
34.
close. Wow. But the Bucks are so long. It seems like every single person on that team has a wingspan that's similar to Giannis's, and I mean Chris Middleton obviously stands out, but they can clog up the paint on you, and there were a lot of possessions where it seemed like the Cavs were just sort of dribbling around the outside, and I think that doesn't work for the Cavs, and I think that's where they miss Kyrie the most probably, is his ability to get inside the paint and everything. Eric, we haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Yeah, one thing that I think that we need to focus on with the Bucks trade for Bledsoe is how much better that makes their defense. I think that brings them right into the conversation with being able to keep up with a Boston Celtics now that you have Eric Bledsoe to match up with Kyrie Irving. Obviously, Kyrie will probably win that battle more often than not, but Eric Bledsoe is definitely no slouch on defense, and also Giannis doesn't really have that great of a jumper, and that having Bledsoe in that offense, it kind of adds that extra dimension of just another shooter out there on the floor.
So Giannis ended with 40 tonight, Middleton ended with 20, and Tedovic came off the bench to score 16. they have scores. I think the biggest thing for the Bucks is going to be maintaining that scoring, and I think adding Bledsoe helps, and like you just said, it helps on the defensive end, by leaps and bounds on the defensive end. All right, moving on. Golden State Warriors.
Can I add one
keep
more
going,
thing?
please.
One
Yes.
more thing there?
Yes.
I don't mean to cut you off. One more thing to add about the Bucks. Yeah, we good?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so just talking about them defensively, it's funny to watch. If you watch, I guess I watch with a coach's eye, so I kind of look, and their whole problem right now, and it'll be curious to see if Eric Bledsoe changes this, is watching guys take possessions off defensively. What I mean by that is they just sit and relax and watch what happens. Where one of the reasons why Giannis is so good on the fast break, it's because half the time he's not in rebounding. He's leaking out already. So it'll be interesting. Bledsoe, hasn't had a lot of experience on winning teams, but he's been around guys like Chris Paul with the Clippers, and curious to see if his leadership, where that stacks in, and kind of if he can get them, Giannis especially, to be consistent with their defensive effort the whole time, because they definitely have all the tools. Now, if they can just put it together consistently, that'll be what I'm curious to see.
And, of course, if he can prevent those I don't want to be here tweets as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I thought ESPN's article today that he was a disgruntled Phoenix Sun was quite the understatement. It's been a few weeks of just brutality coming from Bledsoe, and he wanted out, and I think good for the Suns. They have their draft picks now. Good for them. And Greg Monroe, let's see if he can do something. Anyways, nice little natural segue since the Bucks did play the Cavs tonight. The Cavs did win today. They also dropped to number 10 on ESPN's power rankings this week after being in the top 3 to 4 every single week of the season so far. What's going on with the Cavaliers? And J.R. Smith took a step in the positive direction tonight. He actually looked like himself. But they just have looked out of sync all season so far.
Yeah, I think that they're really missing that facilitator in Kyrie Irving at the point. Derrick Rose is a great point guard, but he's not really the facilitator type at the point. He's more of the dribble drive kind of guy, and he creates shots very similar in the way that LeBron does. And I think that we're seeing almost a little bit of the same problems that we saw with the Miami Heat when LeBron first went there, with not enough people to really move the ball around, a lot of people who can put shots up and score themselves, but not necessarily getting the team involved as much. I think tonight we saw a step forward with their passing and sharing the ball on the floor. But obviously, like you said, the role players on that team have been terrible this season, to say the least. And J.R. Smith, 20 points tonight, like you said. But they're going to need a lot more than just 20 points from J.R. Smith once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think Jay Crowder's going to have to start scoring more than 5 a game also. I think they need to start, today everyone was in double digits in their starting lineup except for Crowder. LeBron had 30, which it was a quiet 30. It seems like he's doing that pretty much every game. He's just been a model of efficiency this season. And LeBron's greatness really, I don't think, has gone down at all this season.
No,
tonight he was 10 for 20 for 30 points. I mean, Kevin Love might have outshone him a little bit, 9 for 14 for 32 points. But I think LeBron's still been great, but you're right. They've just been missing that clog. They've been missing that link. And I don't want to jump to conclusions and say it's Kyrie, but all signs are pointing that way.
Yeah, and, it remains to be seen what this team's going to really be going forward. We haven't seen Isaiah Thomas out there in a Cavs uniform yet. And I think that we really are going to have to reserve judgment on what this team is until we do see him out there healthy with that team. The one thing that I'm concerned about that team going forward, though, once Isaiah Thomas does come back, though, is that this Cavs team just inherited the Celtics' biggest weakness, essentially, or one of their biggest problems in the postseason last year. I mean, Isaiah Thomas is a great basketball player, but I think that it was really, really, really shown last year in the Eastern Conference Finals how small he is at that point guard position. And really, the Cavs last year just ran screen and rolls until they had Isaiah on someone who was a solid foot taller than him, and then it was over from there.
Yeah, Alex Fletcher?
Yeah, well, right now the Cavs are the worst defensive team in the NBA by the defensive rating statistic. So Clearly,